Good morning, everyone. So this morning's coffee chat, we're going to be talking to Darryn de Souza from De Souza Music School. I'm just waiting for him to pop into my comments so I can invite him. And then we'll be talking. Hi, everyone. How are you? Hi, Laura. Hi, Matt. I'm just waiting for Darryn to pop into my thing so I can invite him. Hey, everyone. This is always like the odd one. I just invited him, so he should be popping on any sec. I just sent you an invite, Darryn. There you are.
Hey.
Hi. Like, I was just saying that this is always like the awkward part of the lives, like waiting for like the person to jump on.
And I was sitting there, I was like, I'm gonna see her. She's gonna show up. I'm gonna show up. And then you showed up and I pushed it right away. So it's just it's the time in between. The internet's just making it work out.
That's awesome. Yeah, and like I was trying to go live. So I like tried 3 times and then I kept not doing it. I'm like, so I refreshed my app. I'm like, don't do this to me again this morning because I had tech issues with Angie like 2 weeks ago and I had to re-download the whole app. I'm like, ugh.
Oh man. It's
trapped together.
Well, good morning. It's super sunny outside. I'm hoping it's not like I can close a blind if I look like I'm overexposed, but
You're very glowy, but if you want to go ahead with that. Yeah.
Well, let me close a blind. Maybe I'll do that. If I close a blind, it'll calm it down.
Hi, Laura. Laura says hi, Darryn.
Oh, hello. There we go. That should be a little bit better. Yeah, that's a bit better. I got a little bit.
It's okay. Like I have blasting me right now. So
it's nice to meet you. Meet you, I suppose. We've had some communication and check out what you're doing, which is super cool. And I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on. You have such an interesting background. I thought it'd be interesting to talk to you. And on that note, would you like to tell everyone your history?
Sure. Well, my name is Darryn. I am a piano player and an educator, and I've been that for maybe 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started out coming out of school. I was working in Broadway and doing theater music, and I kind of transitioned into education at the time because I just love working with young people. Mm-hmm. And after that, I got a gig with a group called the Tenors. They were known as the Canadian Tenors at the time, and they were sort of on the jump off, and they were looking for someone who could dedicate their time to touring with them and developing stuff with them and raising bands. And so I jumped on board, and it was maybe 2010. And the first gig I had was in February. And then like 3 months later, we went on a 75-city tour of North America.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it was like very grassroots. We had a 12-passenger van. There were 6 of us in the van, and we literally started at home, went all the way straight down through the US, ended up in Florida area, and then took a turn and went back up, and just kind of went over all the way until we ended up in California. And we just hit as many tiny cities as we could. We were trying to build traction at the time. Yeah. And we really met what was going on there in the US. We saw everybody. We saw people that were affluent and coming all over to big shows, and then there were more grassroots. We were playing community theaters and churches. So it was an incredible learning experience because I had never been on the road. Right. So they're sort of learning how to be a touring musician, and then at the same time figuring out what it takes to sort of stay upright, you know, when you don't have family with you and you don't have your friends to talk to. Very similar, I would say, in a sense, to like the disconnection that we're sort of learning about in these days, you know. It's a phone and a screen is very different, and we're all redefining what connection is. So yes, work with them, and as they gain some traction, they're in a genre called crossover pop. So it's a classical crossover. We have opera singers that are singing pop music and pop singers that take on harmony and main lines in opera. I got to do some really interesting gigs. I've played for Her Highness Queen Elizabeth. I've played for the Obamas. I've played for Ellen DeGeneres. Oprah Winfrey was one of the first people I got to meet. So I've been very blessed to do some of these pretty awesome people, to work with some of these pretty awesome people. But it also gave us some perspective, you know. When I walked in front of them, they still breathed the same air. They were still taller or shorter than me by just this much. And and we just sort of, except Oprah, she was really a little taller than I expected, and hugged
Really?
like so strong. Yeah, the hug was, I never forget it because I kind of lost my breath a little
Yeah.
because she was just so intense in the way that she was enjoying people around her. It
Mm-hmm.
was really memorable. So as I went through that experience, I really enjoyed the personal growth that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
I started out in St. Michael's Choir School, which is a dedicated music school in Toronto, and it breeds young choral singers. So every single day we had 1 to 2 hours of vocal music mixed into our regular day-to-day curriculum, and we toured the world twice a year. So we were sort of learning from a very young age how to survive in a music business and seeing what it was like to leave your house, leave your parents and go out and sort of see the world. I was 9 years old, I think, the first time I left, maybe 10.
Oh, wow.
And we went over to the Yukon territories and dug for gold, in the old
Yeah.
spot they used to dig, and we're staying with billet families. So we were staying on the good nature and good fortune of other people, and just bringing our music. So I was learning that what that was about was similar but quite different to when you're an adult and you're expected to, carry yourself professionally and with respect, with honor and stuff. So I learned that through the tenors and driving through the country and seeing the people that appreciated what we did. And I still do that. I mean, obviously at this time, that's not really an option. Us musicians are all in a pivot and all trying to figure out what it is, how we fit into a world like this. I've always waited for the moment to get back into teaching, and I've started that now. So I opened up the De Souza School of Music, which is my namesake and comes from my family, which is a family that has been steeped in music since I was not even a thought in my mom and dad's mind. And we've been we've always enjoyed music. So I found that when I came off the road last year, I was literally 3 hours from getting in an Uber to jump to the airport when I got a text from management that said, "Do not get on the flight. Do not leave your house. Everything is canceled." And
That's crazy.
and that was the last time I connected with them until Christmas when we had a virtual show.
Yeah.
So everything literally just, you pulled the crank back and it was over.
Yeah. You just got the rug pulled out from you.
That's right. Yeah. And I love the first 2 weeks were like honeymoon. I was home. I was with my kids. I was waking them up and putting them to bed. We were having the greatest time. And then after 2 weeks, you kind of went, well, that can't be all I'm here for. Like, there's still some bills to pay. There's still people to be respectable to, and there's still connections to keep. So I just started to foster some of those and figure out where I could fit in, and came across the people that I work with, the students that I've worked with. I start to reflect and connect with them even, and I felt like I had something to say in the education sector. I was missing the connection with young artists that wanted mentorship and that wanted leadership. So I started to think about what I'd been through and how the tenors tours had shown me a different side of music. I was working with professional conductors, Stephen Mercurio, who's one of the leading pop conductors on this earth and has worked with every major person that you've ever watched, was in our studio. And I was having to communicate with him the charts that I had either created myself or had adapted by someone else's hand. And I was learning like on the fly, just learning how to communicate and be respectful. And so I came out of it and I thought, okay, well, how would I package this so that someone younger than me might get to think about this beforehand and maybe not get some of the hurdles? And I started to come up with some of the things that I loved. I love opera music. I love pop music. I love singer-songwriters. Louis Capaldi just like blast onto the scene, and his voice is very special. So it hit me. And I thought, these are things that people are they're so comfortable with themselves. So I've been developing something that I think is interesting, and that's been a big part of my last 8 months. I've been workshopping it with young students and getting a sense of what works and what doesn't. And I think that's a full circle for me to have gone through my own education and then my own street education, as I call it, just learning by sitting at a piano with someone who's paying you to be something. And what is that thing? Sometimes it's a piano player, sometimes it's a vocal coach. Oftentimes it's the guy that goes to get a coffee. That's just what it is, And so I've learned that, and now I'm trying to pass it on. I'm trying to have younger kids try their best to join that and be a part of that. So hey, Leanne, it's cool. I'm not used to seeing people, flying through and saying hi. I appreciate it. It's really
Oh, you know Leanne?
Say that one more time.
So you know Leanne, or just from my previous lives?
No, I don't know Leanne at all, but she said hi, so I said hi back.
Okay, she's my best friend.
Oh, is that Leanne that you spoke to like a couple weeks ago? Oh, hey Leanne.
I was gonna say small world.
Yeah, no, it is a very small world. Another thing that I like to tell the kids, right? I've bumped into people from cycles that I would never imagine, and they're like, "Oh, I know you," and then that turns into, "Well, what do you think of that person?" Because now there's a connection, and you know very well in the business that you're in that who you know and how you're perceived is a big part of it. So if we get too stuck in ourselves, there's a thin line between asset and liability, I feel, and the asset it has a lot to do with honor and respect for you and your other people that you're working with, and not thinking too much about one person, which is yourself, you know?
Exactly. Sorry, just before we go ahead, if you don't, somebody mentioned they don't have video. If you don't have video, it's probably your connection or the app. So I would suggest popping out of the live, refreshing your app, and then popping back in if you don't have video. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's amazing. How are you finding doing this school online? Like, it's got to be different teaching virtually. I know when my kids are doing virtual school right now, it's completely different ballgame than trying to teach a kid in class.
Absolutely. The first thing I learned, like the very first time, good morning, Louise. The first thing I learned the first time that I was on screen is that all my good nature and my humor and my personality and rapport is zero. When you get on a screen, there is a 1-to-1 ratio of like a face to a face. And I think I learned very, very quickly, and I like to think I learned pretty quickly that if you can connect with the child, if you can have them speak to you or understand what you're trying to have them do, or even be silly or tell a story, you break that wall, that wall that's letting them know that they can just do whatever they want if they want to. And I think there's a lot of screen fatigue in our world right now because so many kids, you know, I have a 13-year-old and I have a 5 and a 3-year-old. So I get to see the 13-year-old who wants to lay in bed from 9 o'clock to 3:30 with a laptop on her chest. Yeah. And I see a 5-year-old who just can't stay there. He wants to run around the house because he just can't. So I think a lot of it is meaningful connection with people. And thankfully, one-on-one allows me a chance to redevelop what that looks like. So I think screen fatigue is something I'm very aware and sensitive to. But I think when people have a project they want to do, you know, like we have right now, we're working on something called the Gratitude Project, which is a little side project where we like to have kids produce a project that they then encourage other people to be a part of the awareness. And I'm learning that by choosing content that they'd like to know about or that they didn't realize they'd like to know about, they're more inclined to either stay at the screen and connect with you, or even go away from the screen and do something on your behalf or on your request, so that they are getting a little bit of a break, but they're also still with you. And I think that's a big part of it, is you don't have to literally glue two faces together to have a meaningful outcome. So I have projects that the kids work on over the week. One of the things I'm trying to teach kids is the difference between studio singing and live singing, because it's very different. In a studio, you go for the perfect phrase in the song. In a live performance, you go for the perfect song. So they're learning that, you know, if they do a take, they can listen to it as a person of their own and say, what do I like about this? Not, oh, I didn't like that. I find that a lot of kids have trouble listening to themselves or even just seeing themselves. So I encourage them to be a little easier on themselves. And I have a thing called the Foundation Principles, which is a list of 3 things. And if you're hitting those 3 marks, you're doing a good job. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, it's a stepping stone. Yeah. So I'm trying my best to create some atmosphere that the kids can be a part of their own success. You know, they can set some realistic goals. A lot of people just want to sound like somebody, but they don't know how many hours that person did to sound like that person. So just encouraging them to take steps where when they hit the step, when they actually mount that step, they can go, I did that. Do it again. Let's do it again and again and again and again. And then all of a sudden you're 30 steps away and you're a different person and you have acceptance of yourself. And now that can translate into your life. And I think that's something I love too, is by being a lowly music teacher, something that's the stigma over decades ago was, oh, you're a teacher. Now we're seeing in this time that there's not too many things more important than the way we foster our young people. So I'm doing everything I can to keep that communication so that I can be a positive part of it. Because I think I love the idea that that kids grow up and go, I loved having Darryn. I loved what he did with me, and I loved how he showed me this that I could never do. I think that's the ultimate payoff of doing something like this. You know, if I'm here so that people tell me I'm amazing, then I'm here for the wrong reason.
No, I totally get that. And I like the point that you brought up, that they're not seeing the artist's journey of how they got to there. Usually we're seeing like the end point or the curated feed of that artist, and we're not seeing their entire journey. So it's important to remember when you're taking on something like this, that there is going to be a journey. It's not going to be instant. Which leads me to a question. How do you deal with people who are struggling on the other end of the screen, or how like easy is it to pick up on their strengths? Like, for me, I'm like a sight reader. So is that easy to pick up on something like that? Can you tell their strengths and their weaknesses over the thing, and how do you deal with that?
It's a good question, and it's a developing thing. I think a lot of that has to do with the teacher's ability within themselves to be musical, so that they can identify things at maybe a deeper level. So what I do is I have a collection of exercises and warm-ups. So some of them are pre-recorded and some of them I do live. One of the challenges with a medium like this is that although we feel like we're in the exact same moment, we never are. And that is never more shown than when you try and play the piano for somebody and you notice that they're, 3 milliseconds behind. Your brain just starts to go, this is not feeling right. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that just won't fit into the right space. So what I do is I have them perform for me. We have a performance kind of module that we keep where we use a week or so to learn a song, where they have the same track, or even a warm-up if that's what we're working on with someone who's getting started. And then they'll perform that track for me. And I'm very aware of the track and what it's meant to do, or I'm very aware of the song because I've personally played that song for them. And then I can really have a good sense of where they are, not only in terms of the quality of their voice, but how comfortable and confident they are in what they're doing. And then really the hard part, the challenging part is, how do you open up a conversation with someone who isn't comfortable or used to having a conversation about how they improve? And so when you're with a 15-year-old student, you might have an openness or a bigger wall because of their past. Or when you're working with a 6-year-old, you might have them try anything, no matter what. But how do you then have them have some continuity in what they're doing? So I think you can. I think you can accomplish a lot on a Zoom class. Everyone has to come in with an open mind, because then we're not as worried. It's almost like that idea of consciousness. Things can happen in front of you, but you don't have to be shaken by them. And I believe, and I'm working into it, we have, a meditational yoga side. And it's not that we do yoga or meditate during class, but the arts it would be impossible to not tie the arts to inner being and your inner health and your personal mental journey. So it's a huge part of it. And I sit every night with my children and I have a song I play to them, which I think
that's awesome.
echoes it, and the song is called Don't Let Go by PJ Morton, who is my current idol. And he is a perfect example of what an artist can be. 18 years old, his dad was a preacher. He was writing gospel music at a large level for big, huge gospel artists. He did well. He suddenly noticed there was an audition, and so he went for it. And the audition was for a small band called Maroon 5. They were looking for a keyboard player. That keyboard player is now PJ Morton right now. But when he joined them, he understood that he was playing pop music with them during the day and developing his craft at night. And he knew that what he wanted to write was more towards the gospel sort of sector with a pop infringement. So he is like a guy who knew what he wanted. And I think he demonstrates really well those steps. And the song he wrote was one of the most potent songs personally for me. It's a song about mental health, and it's a song about holding on when you don't know if you can or should, and maybe opening it up to people outside of you to get some feedback. And so all those types of elements are just so healthy, and they just speak to what the arts is. And I think it perfectly describes why I sit, in this chair. It's a collection of how many different things that have put me here. Good fortune, good people. Christine is one of the people that I work with who is like always wanting to push because she believes in this. And so she connected you and I. And I don't know if I would have found you without her. So these little things are important, and we have to be honored. So I think when kids sit at the table, they're not getting a guy who can play whatever song you want. They are getting that. That's part of it. But they're also getting someone who cares about what they're like, not today, not next week, not next year, but 10 years down the road, I'm trying to build something in the kids that I can be proud of. And even if I don't know what they do in 10 years, I would love to check in with them and they say, what you did was really fun. What you did was growing for me. And then I'll know that what I was doing was completely successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's about the long game, not so much just making sure that they can play the latest pop song. I like that. What advice, since you're teaching kids, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, it's a good question. I think the most important thing that I've learned over the years is that you are you, and everything outside of you is important, and it's meant to be honored, and it's meant to be taken in, and it's meant to be a part of your being, but it's not the most important thing, because it's gonna give you insight, it's gonna give you perspective, but if you let it in too far, it can start to change yourself, like that one that's right in the middle. You know, I use the idea of a gut instinct, and my gut tells me stuff, and when it tells me, it's my choice if I'm going to listen to it or not. But it's also my responsibility later to look back and say, I wonder if that gut was right, or if I could have maybe thought about something else to lead it. And then you're just developing that. So I think I would directly say to myself in the screen, instead of worrying exactly about what everyone thought, take it in with something else and try and see if you can develop it, because they're not telling it to you to make you worse. And if they are, it should have bounced off you anyway. But if they're telling it to you to make you better, then they're telling it to you with respect and love, and that should be a part of your being moving forward. And I think if I had done that, maybe I would be something different than I am, but I'm super happy with where I'm at right now. So every kid, that's another thing I think kids need to learn, is that a success is great, a failure is great as well. How do you learn from it? How do you get up? How do you create resilience? You know, especially kids that want to be in the business of the arts. How many people, you know, you go to LA and you throw up confetti, and every piece of confetti could hit someone who wished they were in the business. It's just the reality. Exactly. So we need resiliency, and we need it no matter if we're a surgeon, if we're a worker, or if we're an artist. And I try my my darndest to create a pathway for people to just try and have that question at some point.
I love that so much. I was going to touch on what you were saying about resiliency and about criticism, because we've talked about this in a couple other lives too, where criticism is a funny thing, because sometimes it's just people projecting their own stuff onto you. But at the same time, if it's constructive criticism, we have to look at it from a standpoint where they're just trying to help us. So I think the criticism depends on who it's coming from, right?
Absolutely. It's a good point. And I think I've actually, and it took some time, because I'm of the age where criticism was a word that we knew so well when you were constructively criticized. It was, you know, there was a lot. I love the word constructivism, and there's a very small difference. And the difference simply is that constructivism aims to have two people have a conversation about how someone can get better. And it may mean that you tell them that their breath is not as strong as it could be. And it may mean that you tell them that the note they're singing is not quite right. But you're not doing it from that place that you were just sort of describing, which has a personal touch to it, you know? And I think one of the things I've noticed in young people is they're still learning this thing we call tact. They don't know how to be tactful in the way they communicate. So it's actually really cool, because you'll notice someone who says something that has nothing to do with the other person, but the person has decided that that's a piece of constructivism that they can offer. And as soon as I sort of put a mirror in between the two people, they're able to say, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. That makes sense. Maybe I should work on it too. And then you're opening up a completely different conversation. Because if you and I, Jen, were in a room and our goal was to make each other better, we would start the conversation differently than if you and I were vying for the same part. Yeah,
exactly.
So I think that changes a lot, the atmosphere that you're in.
Yeah. And the other great point you touched on about the failure and successes too, something that we've been talking about in the past lives as well, is that failures aren't necessarily failures. As you mentioned, they're lessons, right? So I always like to think of everything in your life is always a blessing or a lesson, right? So if we reframe the whole mistake or failure, it's not a failure, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson that you had to learn to get you to the next step.
Absolutely. You know, I was
Mm,
in this moment, maybe it was actually only a couple days ago.
mm,
I was working with a young student. He's 8 years
mm,
old, but he's so smart that he always feels like an 11-year-old. Like he's just
mm,
so quick. And we came across a moment where he was perhaps not so happy about hearing that something he had done was not exactly correct. He was used to hearing that because he's so great at what he does. So at first I thought in my mind, I thought, what is going on? This kid is not with
mm.
me. Why is he not with me? But then I
Yeah.
stepped back a second and I thought, but why does he have to be with me? Why am I the decider of
Mhm,
the single path that he can go and the single speed that he can go on it at?
mhm,
And what I came to was that we had a quick conversation. It was 5 minutes. And we
mhm,
ended up even in inviting his mom into the conversation because it turned into an opportunity to say, what is it
mhm,
that you would like to
mhm.
accomplish here? And if it isn't going to take us an extra week, why is that such a terrible thing? Why can't we wait
Mhm,
for a minute? So I think that that's an important thing, is that we have to redefine every single day.
mhm.
I'm seeing a question here. Have you taught anyone who went on to be a professional? If so, how did you feel? That's a good question. I mean,
Mhm.
professionally is like a really broad thing. I've taught
Yeah.
many kids. I have a lot of students that have gotten from, you know, being a youngster to being in school for it. And
Mhm,
as far as I'm concerned, the day you walk into school is the day you've decided that you're a professional. It's not
mhm.
really about getting paid, because if it is, then we're all getting underpaid, because
Yeah.
every artist on this earth is like working 24/7 to
Oh
be
yeah.
completely everything they can be, and you don't get paid for that, right? Everyone says you easy life, man. You play from 8 to 10 o'clock. You're a piano player, and I'm like, that's not what I get paid for. I do not get paid from 8 to 10 o'clock. That's the part I
Yeah.
would do for free
Mhm.
every single day. You
Yeah.
put 10 people in front of me and a stage with a 10,000 or $300,000 piano, I'm in. You got
Mhm,
me. It's the sound check and the preparation and the
mhm,
connecting with the administrators and the learning the orchestra sort of feel so that you can lead them. It's the preparing of sheet music and taking responsibility for when the bass player forgot to do what it is he does, or the guitar player. So all that stuff is the work. Exactly. It's the grunt work. And
Yeah.
when you paid for the grunt work, it averages out. Every artist here, whether you create with paint,
Mhm.
cameras, videos, your voice, your performance, whatever it is, you know
Yeah.
what grunt work is because you did it to get here. And you probably also know that you get paid $5 to $10 an hour
Yeah.
because you love it so much.
Mhm,
So we all have to be in that place where we just accept that this is what we love. It's a labor of love that we also strive to make income off of. But
mhm.
really, if that was the only factor, you would only have like Johnny Depp, Tom Hanks, Jennifer Lawrence. These would be the only people that could survive it. You
Yeah.
know, so I think that it's important for us to flip the script on it, because artists are important. They are. I mean, we're
Mhm.
seeing it. We're seeing how
Yeah.
many artists came to the IG Live platform March,
Mhm.
April, May, June. For me personally, there were two major ones: PJ Morton and Tori Kelly.
Okay. Whoa. My cup just exploded.
It was big. Tori Kelly is like a golden child in music. She blasted onto the scene
Yeah.
as everything you ever wanted to hear in the movie
Yeah.
Sing, and after that, no one knows. Sorry, no one has not heard her voice. That's a double negative
Yeah.
and very unclear. But
Mhm,
everyone knew who she was. And PJ Morton was just this guy that I was always wishing I could see in his house play the piano, and that's what I saw for
mhm,
free. I didn't put $1 into it. I didn't donate money unless I felt inclined to a, not even directly to him, to a foundation he had asked about.
mhm.
So these people came to the table, and they didn't do it because they were going to make money. Maybe they had an intention to connect with more people, but is that so
Mhm,
bad? Is that a negative? No, they're
mhm,
bringing their faith, their music, their faith, their
mhm,
positivity. So I think we got to see a little bit about how important it can be to
mhm,
sort of put yourself out there,
mhm,
to provide something, and then when you get paid, you're happy
mhm.
to get it, you know. And one day, if someone offers me $10 million to do something, I
Yeah.
will be happy to bring in that kind of money and decide how that money should be redistributed, whether it be to my career, the wellness of my family, the right foundation.
Mhm,
But right now, I do it because I think it's important. I
mhm.
think people need it. And I think that I have a voice that should be heard. That's how I feel.
Exactly.
That's overconfidence. I think that's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, it's important to remember, as Darren's mentioning, like not anyone can do what you can do. So sure, there's like probably 10 people that can teach music, but nobody can teach music in the way that you teach music. So it's brilliant that you're bringing the schools to these kids and teaching them. And on that note, how can people work with you? Like
Great question.
how do they get
So
into?
So here's what we're doing. Right now, we're piloting. So we're bringing together these ideas. I sort of mentioned some of them. We're bringing together some of the opera foundations, some of the pop foundations, some of meditation and yoga. And we're sort of putting them together into a paintball and sort of throwing them at kids. And the ones that stick, the ones that show positivity are the ones that we're really enjoying and seeing the kids. They're interested. Oh, are we doing the breathing exercise today? Oh, are we doing, I have a really good exercise. Do you sing, Jen?
I do. I don't do it often. See some of my fails on Instagram page.
I just happen to have a piano here, Jen.
Oh, sing.
I want to show you something.
Okay.
When I grew up, every warm-up I went through was like the time to check your watch and the time that you think about dinner and the time you think about your buddy you're going to see, because you're just going through the motions. And my eyes were opened by this artist. I have to give him credit. His name is Stevie Mackey. He's on Instagram and has a wonderful feed that you would love. He's just he's like the top of the teacher echelon. He hangs out with people like J-Lo and incredible artists who he's their teacher. But he had an awesome program that I went through where he taught you that warm-ups should be fun and they should be musical. And so I want to do it with you really quick, if you're game.
Yeah, I'm just worried is Instagram's going to block out one of our audios, because sometimes it does that. So.
Here's what we're going to do. I'll go through it,
Okay.
and we'll see how it runs through. Basically, call and response. So what call and response is I sing something, and then you sing it back to me. And your goal is to sing exactly what I sang in your key. So you're a girl, so you'll probably be an octave higher, or you might be right in the same key, whatever you feel more. So here's my note. The words you need to know are, I miss my baby. Where did she go? I want to know. Those are the 3 lines that you need. And I'm going to sing. I'm going to go, I miss my baby. And then you're going to sing, I miss my baby. Where did she go?
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 I miss my baby.
I miss my baby.
I miss my baby.
I miss my baby.
Where did she go?
Where did she go?
Where did she go?
Where did she go?
Amazing. So what did we do there? We did 3 things that you might not even realize. Number 1, we worked on your ear because you were repeating to the best of your ability what you heard from me. Believe it or not, we also worked on your timing because the little delay between this allowed me to hear you singing even when you're not super comfortable. So it's almost like I didn't give you solid ground. I kind of gave you a little shake in on the bottom and you went through it. So that's a great sign. Just an example, you can actually learn something when you're on shaky ground because you're setting yourself some great foundation. And finally, by changing keys in the middle of phrases, I'm throwing your brain off and forcing it to make a new decision in the moment. And I think those things are all part of learning. And you would not necessarily have had this thing in person 6 years ago. It's all being created. So how can we be creative with what we're doing right now to give people an opportunity? And I think that's amazing. And the kids are, when they get into the class with me, they're learning that they can do something interesting. And then it's not just like, and I have no ill will towards anyone outside of here because there's no perfect teacher. There's just a perfect teacher for that person. People communicate and there's a wavelength. And if it's the right one, stick around and you see it. You see the rapport, you see the love of that. So when I find those kids, I love that they stay because it gives me the opportunity to develop them. Right now in the world that we're in, it's just not responsible to be for people, even and masks don't help singing, and singing doesn't work with masks, and you know all of these things are just not right. So we're all completely virtual. I can't wait till the day that I can be in the room with kids again and work with them as a physical actual person. But right now we're redefining the game and we're doing it in a way that allows them to be safe, get up in bed, take a few minutes to settle themselves and be in class. And you know what? My goal is I want to teach people from this country, that country, that country, that one. Why not? Why can't we? Music is 100% universal. You could probably go to Africa and go, they know what that is, right? That's universal. So I'm pushing out that love. And we have the De Souza School of Music.com. That's De Souza School of Music.com, as well as our IP.
Below the video.
as well as the School of Music. And we are just, we want people to connect with us. And you have options to join workshops. We do project-based workshops where we teach kids how to record themselves, not only audio, but in video. We teach them basics, you know, why do you have a light behind you? What's the purpose of that? Why don't you sit right over here when you're singing? Because there are things that change in technology. So we're giving them some responsible tips to be good. And, you know, every kid has a different path. Not every kid wants to be Adele or Bruno Mars or whoever it is that they love today, Taylor Swift, or, you know, some people just want to be able to appreciate music at a level that they didn't yesterday. And I find working with adults that there are a million adults that want to just do something they never got a chance or never had the courage to do when they were younger. And so they'll come in and say, hey, can you just get me to the point where I can sing this one Taylor Swift song? And I'm like, amazing. Not only have you given me the goal, but you allowed us to set a realistic path, because we're not going to learn it today. We're going to learn it over the next X number of days, weeks, or months, depending on where you're at. So I think the platform, you know, we teach over Zoom. I have some kind of interesting pre-recorded technique that I'm starting to give kids that gives them an opportunity and lets them do it on their time. Because, you know, one of the things parents say to me more often than I would expect is, you know, my son is on his video games like 7 hours a day, but I'm working. So how can I give him something to do? And I was like, well, if he's in a class where other people are doing stuff, he's going to naturally be inspired to do it because other people are doing it. But if he's only hanging out with people who play this 1 or 2 games every day for 8 hours, then that's going to be the norm. So I think we redefine the norm to say, yes, do what you love. Play your video games, do it. But also do something to sort of grow yourself and make yourself feel like you're worth it. Because it's really easy. I went through it. You probably went through it. We all went through it March, April, May, where we felt useless on this earth. What are we doing? Why are we here? But we have a reason. Sorry, sometimes I get passionate about things. And
I love it. No, please be passionate. Like, if you'd watched me talk with KJ last week, I was like my Italian roots were coming up. They're like going like this.
It's what we do. I mean, you find it so often in our business, and some people are worried about it. Oh man, that's just so loud, and they're so. But the point is, they're them, and you're you, and we can both coincide. So why bother? Don't let it be part of the thing that bothers you. Let it be a part of the thing that says, actually, I love that they reacted to this situation this way. Maybe I need some more of that. You know?
Exactly.
So we pushing as much as we can to just give people an opportunity. Our project-based content is like the one that we're doing right now is the grad project. We're working on a song called Good Job by Alicia Keys.
Oh, nice.
Basically, it's a 6-week cycle. So in the first 3 weeks, we really go heavy on workshopping how to sing the song and splitting the song up amongst the students to have meaningful parts for people to perform. They take it home and work on it. They might even send me a little iPhone recording of them so I can send them back some notes if it's needed. And then starting this week, we'll start actually learning how to film ourselves. Everyone will send me some content, and then we have some amazing contacts. I have one thing I'm proud of is that over 10 years, I've rubbed shoulders with some impressive minds in this industry, you know, and I've met some of the most important people in my own personal growth that gave me hope that someone like me, who was 6 years old sitting on my mom's lap playing piano because she was a concert pianist, or watching my dad at a party like light everyone's mind up because he was playing the Billy Joel song that everyone loves, that kid can stand in front of Stevie Wonder and say into his ear that I appreciate what he's done for me. I mean, talk about the long game.
Right. That's I know somebody's going to ask me, so I'm just going to ask you right now so you can tell everyone. Somebody's going to ask me whether or not you teach adults.
Oh my gosh. I think that the adult side of teaching is actually more challenging. But I love it. See, when you work with kids, you have the distinct ability to influence how they start to think about these things. And you're doing it because they have no experience, right? You're coming, an 8 to 10-year-old kid only knows the personality their parents have given them, maybe a collection of their friends, and that's really all. When you're working with someone that's, 20 plus, either they already decided they have to be ready for this audition, and they do a coaching, and I work with a young man right now who just loves music. Like, he just loves to write, to sing, he doesn't have a definition. And so every week we kind of come together and we either pick a song he's written or we work on a song that we both know. and we just trade time. I give him what I believe is transactional musicality. I give him things that he can take away from it, and he just has time. And it doesn't have to be a recital or some coffee house that's coming up. It's just fun, and I love working with adults. I welcome working with. I don't have a adult class yet because, as you probably would imagine, it's hard to get 7 or 8 adults in a room and then say, "Hey, let's work on this every single week at this exact time." It's more of a realistic thing right now to work private coachings where they do time that works for them. So I enjoy and I welcome working with adults. I love the idea of an adult who knows what they want. You know, a couple of years ago, I worked with a doctor, actually my own family doctor, had learned that I was teaching, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I come by like on my lunchtime? I want to work on Alfie." And I was like, "Alfie?" Like, it was like, "What's it all about, Alfie?" Is like, it's a song from the 30s that I'd heard in jest in TV. And he came over, and I was blown away. It's not even about how good or bad he was. I was blown away that he came in with an open mind. This is a man who works with people by the hundreds, telling them what's wrong with them at a scientific level. And he came in willing to work on the art. I mean, it was eye-opening for me. And ever since then, I've never said no. If I can work in a schedule where an adult was full, I'm all for being a part of your success and your steps toward it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to ask, because I know somebody's going to ask me, because I have a lot of artists that follow me, a lot of multi-passions that follow me, and there are shows that keep popping up, like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, that people might want to get on, or like Disney. So I just wanted to ask, so it's out there, so all of you know now.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we also have this vibe, sorry to cut you off, we have this vibe where we're trying to, you know, have, what are we, you know, as a school, what are we? We care about inspiration, positivity, creativity, responsibility. You know, reality is a big part of it too. Yeah. So we use our Instagram feed, we use our social media as a way to let people know this is what we are. So if you follow us on socials, you'll see the vibe that we are. I'm there. I'm putting videos up to help people with little 10-second tips. We're putting up content that lets you think about things. I learned really quickly over this break that you can do this motion about 10 to 15,000 times. Right? This is the motion, right? And what are you taking in? What are you looking at? And I had this conversation with my wife when we were really getting into what we want to do. If we have one goal with our social, we want people to stop for a second, read, think, and then move on. And then that's a success. And if we did that, then we were part of something where we were being responsible for what we are. How many times have I seen, you know, some prank video or like some video or something that I didn't need to see at that moment? Although maybe there were times that I need to see it. Who knows? Maybe I needed a break. But I would love to. Like, and now I'm seeing it because Instagram curates what you want. So I'm trying to curate what I want to see so that Instagram will then help me be in the same room as people like you and people like the people that you've had on the show. Because if you want that and you put it out, somehow it just starts to happen.
That's amazing. I just wanted to read you a couple comments before we go. Peter Agate. I don't know if it's Peter Gate or Peter Agate, because sometimes people put extra letters in. Yeah, my kids are like statuses on Zoom lessons. That's cool. Laura says, we have so much fun in class.
Oh, what's it? Hi, Laura. Hi, Lara.
Is it Lara or is it Laura?
Lara, yeah.
Lara. I just wanted to go back, make sure I didn't miss anything. Anybody have any questions for Darryn? Because if not, then I have one last one, because I want to be respectful of his time. Because I know I talk forever on this show, like with KJ. I'm like, I have to shut up now so I can let her go.
No, it's great. And you know what? When you talk too long, Instagram just says, listen, man, it's been an hour. I think it's time for you to go.
Oh, see, I don't get that. Apparently, only some people get that now. Depending on where you are in, like, where in the world or what version you have. Some people can go for 4 hours. Now, they updated that in October. So in October, they made it available that you can live stream for 4 hours. So I don't get kicked off after 60 minutes. So I guess I'm one of the people that got that. So.
You have something to say. They've decided.
Like, I don't want to abuse it, though, because they might take it back.
No, it's great. I mean, I think when the pandemic came, there were people like, I don't know if you know DJ Nice. He was like a huge, he just exploded in Instagram. And
he does nightly DJ things online.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was doing like marathon 8-hour ones. Every hour you would disappear and come back in, right? So I think it's one of those things where they're learning. I think it's cool that Instagram revisits things as often as they can.
Yeah.
I think that's the scope has changed. Speaking for an hour, might have thought that it was impossible on Instagram Live 8 months ago, but now it's not even enough sometimes for people.
Yeah.
They want to build something bigger.
Yeah. The next thing that they need to fix is this whole audio cutting out when somebody else is talking, because I'm trying to watch two characters from, not characters, but people in real life who play characters on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. They're trying to duet together and they couldn't because one audio would cut out as the other one would sing.
Really?
But hopefully,
I just read about a technology in Ottawa
yeah.
that is just going a little further into it so that they can actually maybe fix that problem. You know, we have a little bit of gray area.
They're coming out with, it's only in India right now, but eventually they're coming out with a feature where 3 people will be able to do a live stream on Instagram.
Oh, that's cool.
So if they could fix the audio and then add in that thing, then people could like duet and sing and play together, right?
Absolutely. And there is the technology is now starting to show up because we do have a little bit of gray area where we can still sing together and it feels together. Yeah. But if they could integrate it, Instagram would be a different forum. You can do it with people all the time. It would be amazing. Yeah. And even like in an art, like as an actor, we could do like in lockdown right now, we could be doing like screenplays and stuff, doing scenes together, 3 different ways, like entertaining people, but they don't have that, but eventually, hopefully. The last thing I want to leave people with, for those of us who do have an interest in singing at home, is there a tip or a couple tips that you'd like to leave people with that they could work on at home right now? Absolutely. Yeah. I think the first tip that I like to work people through, as long as they understand that anything you do inside your body is not going to happen right away. It's just not. Our body is made up of however many years we've been on this earth. Those are how long those habits have been grown. So changing habit is a challenge. But what I like to talk about is your breath is your battery. So how your breath treats everything above it is how you're singing at the very basic level is a little buzz above your larynx. That's all it is. And after your breath goes through it, after it resonates through your head, you get this gorgeous sound. So what I talk to people about is if you want to understand how important your breath is, here's the exercise. Pick the song that you love to sing. Make sure you can sing it, feel comfortable. And then when you're ready to, do enough jumping jacks to get you a little bit of a pant. You don't want to be losing your mind. You don't want to be on your knees like trying to figure out how to get up. But you want to be able to, you want to have that feeling. And what that's going to do is that's going to engage your musculature as opposed to your brain. When I say breathe to your stomach, you go, is it going? I don't know. Am I moving my tummy? I'm not really sure. And so you kind of emanate that kind of feeling. But when you remove the brain part of it, the muscle knows what to do. So if you do a bunch of jumping jacks, I usually have my kids do between 10 and 25. So an 8-year-old might do 10 jumping jacks and start to feel it. A 17-year-old dancer might do 35 jumping jacks and feel like she's starting to get the breath moving. And then sing your song, but don't let anyone know that you're panting. And the action of suppressing that pant is a very similar feeling to the action of engaging your diaphragm. And so it's an easy win for learning how your diaphragm works. And once you do that, you start to kind of think of what it feels like. And I think right away I've seen kids that are this little to getting this big just with 2 rounds of jumping jacks. They're starting to understand it. So if I had one takeaway tip, that would be the one. That's really neat. I've never heard that before. I do understand how important breath is because I know when I get into my higher octaves, my voice starts to break and you get really airy, right? So I've been trying to breath at home. But yeah, that's a really good tip. Thank you for that. You're welcome. And as I talk through with people about breathing, there's obviously a million things that you go through when you talk about it. But balance of breath, which is what we talk about when we kind of move our breath. That's not really a word, but when we're moving our breath, you got to kind of figure out what's the yin and the yang of it. And when you figure it out, that's when your breath starts to take off. So I think the breathing exercises starts to give that question. When I go higher, why can't I? Well, it seems breathy. That might not be actually breath coming through. That might be a lack of breath. So it's popping out too big a hole. So you get into the thought of it. And singers that are mindful find success. It's a mix of being mindful and doing the reps. If you do those, your body makes it normal. And then when it's normal, you can aim for the next thing. I encourage my kids to have as many glass ceilings as they want. It's a hotel. Yeah, that's a really good tip for actors too, though, for that breath technique, because we need to be aware of our breath when we're doing scenes, right? Because often if your breath isn't matching the scene that you're in, then it's going to fall flat, right? So
for actors, if you're doing a really intense scene, go do those jumping jacks he was talking about and get your breath. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the breath engages your energy. So, I mean, when we're excited, we talk like we're up. But when we're sort of chatting, we tend to be down. And that area is not the area of performance typically, you know? The area of performance requires a little more momentum. So we try to teach that. Confidence and momentum, all these great words for life are also great words for singing, which is where my basic belief that singing lessons can improve your life come from.
Yeah, and not just even if you're a singer, as any form of, if you're in the arts at all, it can improve so much that it can improve your public speaking because you're working on your breath, your tone, how you present to people, it can improve your acting. So singing is a really good thing for anyone to take up on in any form of the arts. So
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm going to put Darryn's contact information below this video after it uploads. It might take a little bit because it's a long video. And then I'm going to go back through this video later today, as I tell everyone, and I will put the show notes in. So if you want to skip to a specific topic we were talking about, you can do that. It'll be going up on the website. And if you want to re-listen to this but can't spend the time on video, it will be going on Spotify as well as in audio.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Darryn, for doing this. This was so great. And you even got thing on a live, which is
it's great. I love that you can just have a meaningful conversation like this. I mean, this is what's kept a lot of us upright. I have one sentiment I want to leave you with. I've been saying this to my kids because I think it makes sense. I sing this to them every single night. I sing, everything is gonna be all right. Everything is gonna be all right. Everything is gonna be all right. Everything is gonna be all right.
That's amazing. I love that. Thank you so much for doing that. This has been a fun chat. I hope everyone has enjoyed this. Does anyone have any questions quick before we pop off here? I just want to make sure. Lots of hearts. Awesome. I'll just give it like 5 more seconds to make sure nobody has a question typing. Yeah, but this has been so great. I love this. People are going to really enjoy this. And I will pop it into my stories as well. I don't think there's any questions. Awesome. If you have a question after this about any of Darryn's classes or one-on-one coaching, tag him in the video below this, and I'm sure he'll pop in and answer them. All right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Darryn. Have an amazing day.
You too. Take care. Thanks for having me.